and it's also art is a connection of humans, and we connect the world throughout with art. So why is it important to to support your local artists, to connect, to create value in our community? So by a show of hands, who's heard of the East Austin Studio Tour? Awesome. So for those of you that don't know, it is an art event that takes place in November for 2 weekends. And it's an opportunity for the public to meet the artists, hopefully purchase art and support them. It's a free event, and it has been going on for 17 years. East is put on by Big Medium. They are a nonprofit organization supporting and promoting contemporary art in Texas and mainly in Austin. They are working to really connect art and artists through this event. So here's a map of all of the galleries and happenings and exhibitions. They have over 250 artists and over 60 galleries. If you think about it, that's really, you can see almost one new artist every day for an entire year. And Big Medium provides a place for artists. It's called Canopy. They provide rentable studios that artists can rent out and share their art. So when we started looking at a way to improve the East experience, we started looking at our competitive analysis, and these are most of the competitors we have.
So hello everyone. So in our competitive analysis, I would like to give you guys a background on our competitive analysis. But first, let's start off by seeing the upper influential art galleries we are comparing to. This is East, and East is a young but not too young of an art community. They attract around 1,000 artists and over 100,000 attendees. While East is a great art place and they have a lot of attendees, we do have Art Vessel, who have been around since the 1970s, and they attract about 4,000 artists and thousands of attendees. As you can see in the picture, it's a big event, so they are well established, not as much as East, but we're trying to get to that platform the way they are doing it. The same thing can be said about Expo Chicago. They've been around for a while. They are based around the world almost. They do a lot of galleries. One of the biggest shows they do is in Hong Kong, Buenos Aires, Argentina, and here in the States in Miami, Florida. They are well regulated, and they know what they're doing at this point. Now that we've seen what they're all about, we wanted to go ahead and compare the aesthetics and minimalism design, consistent standards and navigation of their website, how they go about comparing them, how they face each other. On East, as you can see, East is their navigation and their aesthetically, they're pretty good, not too bad for something that looks like it's being put up for artists and for attendees to see information. But their content is not as minimalist as you will see in places that, websites such as Art Vessel. Their content is very nice and clean, very minimalist, very easy on the eye to very pleasing. Same thing can be said about Expo Chicago. Their work and their navigation is pretty easy to navigate and where to go. So, as you can see here in our comparative analysis, we kind of match out the overall view on how they compare in their websites and their mobile phone. But with that, we wanted to compare and do a task and see how they compare in how easy it is to find something, to see if say for example an attendee wanted to buy an art piece or find an event tickets. And Art Vessel is very clear. They can go on the page, get the event. Same thing with Art Vessel. You can buy a ticket or for an event or anything you see. On East, we see that they do the job right, but it seems like it's a little bit, something is missing. Here you see like it's almost like you come to an error message instead of like making it look like, hey, you're buying a ticket. One of the things also that we noticed is that East have great sponsors, but to the level of like where they're over 15 years, and you have Arvesta and Archical, which they bring bigger sponsors. So their artists are able to sell their art easily and bring that revenue that they need. So in comparing East and the other competitors, I think we think that they need to get to that level of who to bring in. And here where we come into our customer journey.
That was anyone. Alrighty. So when we started our research, we started off asking who are the users when it comes to East Austin Studio Tour. And we came to a couple people that we thought were essential parts of the East experience. Artists who are actually selling their art, participants who go to the events, and then the hosts, big medium. How we solicited our interviews was we started off with a couple different methods. For instance, Ashley went to the website and tried actually emailing a ton of artists and got a lot of responses. Asia also used our network, maybe through Facebook, text message, phone calls, and sought out people that we actually knew in the East Austin community who were artists or had been going to East for maybe as much as 10 years. We also did on-site interviews where me and Ashley and Asia actually interviewed one of the artists she had met through the website, where the other half of our group actually went into Canopy and found an artist in her studio and just interviewed her on-site about her experience with East. We actually made a Google form to make sure that we were asking the same questions of all our interviewees so we would be able to easily compare their answers and see where their pain points were and where the bottlenecks were in their experience. We actually had to go through and transcribe these interviews and put them into Google Docs to make sure that we weren't using our own bias and we were actually copying out direct quotes from the users to keep the integrity of the data points we were collecting. We also went through each of these docs and we highlighted exact quotes, observations, and behaviors we had seen while we were in these interviews, and then meticulously wrote them out word for word on sticky notes. Why were we doing this? Basically to synthesize these data points. This is what we call an infinity map, where we covered an entire wall with all these pieces of data we had collected from our interviews. And the idea is that we were going to start to see themes and group things together and see patterns emerge from this data. We were asking ourselves, how do we make meaning out of this data? Basically, a couple themes started to emerge. Number one, that East is large and unwieldy. People have issues wayfinding because there's so many points across the whole map of Austin where you can experience East. It's happening 2 different weekends. There's ancillary events you can sign up for and go to. The pricing isn't necessarily straightforward. There's also another theme that emerged was artists trying to support themselves and their livelihood. Artists trying to connect with other artists and collaborate. Artists connecting with their fans, with patrons, creating lasting, meaningful relationships. There's a couple patterns that we started to see emerge, like professional artists were reluctant to even participate in East because they say, hey, I have to pay $150 to Medium to host, and then I don't even sell enough to make that back. Whereas I could go to another event with more clout and bigger sponsors and maybe not only make back the money that I pay, but more. Also, participants seem to have deep roots in the East Austin scene, which makes sense because it's kind of a grassroots effort where you might be going for 3 years, 10 years, and you might know some artists. We also saw participants could be artists themselves, whether as a hobby or, maybe they were a professional artist at some point. We also saw that Big Medium does make an effort to get in sponsors that can support the artist, but that they are charging money to go to this event. So when we started to see all these patterns emerge, we started to ask why. Why is East so hard to navigate? Why aren't artists selling enough pieces? Why is it hard for participants to afford these art pieces? And from that, we started to come up with a couple insights, like participants find East experience overwhelming. Artists need to make more revenue to make it worth it, and participants want to support the local artists but often can't afford the available price. So from this, we asked, how might we solve these issues? How might we give participants an easier way to plan their day at East? How might we increase artist revenue, and how might we allow participants to support local artists at a price point that they can afford?
I'm doing from. Okay. So out of these insights, we arrived at a problem statement. Art enthusiasts need an easier way to support East artists financially because they want to contribute but often cannot afford the available price. And our hypothesis, we believe that by creating an interactive app experience, art enthusiasts will be able to donate an affordable amount, creating a sense of inclusion. We will know this to be true when we see artists and enthusiasts connecting through the East experience at a price point that works for them. Out of our research also came our primary persona, Sonia Waybright, which we realized was an amalgamation of these initial roles we saw coming out of our research. So she's been an artist with East in the past, but she's only attending this year. And because of that, she has a lot of empathy for the artists showing and can understand that they want to find benefit for themselves for all of the work and money that they've put into this tour. She also understands that art is really expensive because a lot of time and effort goes into it and can't always afford those high price points. We also decided that Sonia, based on our research, enjoyed interactive art experiences the most, things that she could get involved in. So we gave ourselves a couple of days to really go broad and come up with a lot of ideas, wild ideas, so that we wouldn't go with the most obvious or simple answer, and instead make sure that we came up with the best solution for this problem. We went through some exercises such as rapidly sketching out our ideas for 5 minutes, presenting and combining those ideas, or sketching ideas and then passing them to the person on your left for them to expand on, to just mix things up and make sure we were bringing in a lot of ideas out of the ether. From there, we did a silent vote to make sure we weren't relying on groupthink or letting the most vocal people take over, to make sure that the best ideas came to the fore again, and landed on the idea of a mural which people could pay through the app to participate in. And that was our initial idea. With that, we went to a paper prototype. We started on paper so that we could get things out quickly and get feedback as quickly as possible. Our initial testing, it was really beneficial. We found out that we should simplify more and be more focused. We also did a gallery walk in which we presented to our colleagues our ideation process up to that point and got some feedback such as maybe bringing in a big name that would draw more attention to the project and hopefully bring in more donations, and as well as that we should bring back in the option to allow people to donate to a single artist rather than all East artists, which we had eliminated in the earlier round of testing. And so that brings us to where we transitioned into our latest version of the project. We started at interactive art installation with this great brand that Gus made, and I'll hand it off to Christine to discuss the solution as it stands.
So, excuse me. This led us to As you know, the East Austin Studio Tour, the landmark location